that's on you.
That's on you. Slapped.
You can't do everything, Bonnie. You're just going to get better help.
Sorry, is there restrictions regarding when the race officer is allowed to change the course in relation to where the boats are?
Yes, that's a good point. We have to do it before the first boat rounds starts on that new lake. So pretty much what we're doing is setting up our course boat, might be us, might be one of the course lane boats, to make these signals at, say, the leeward mark, and they're going to be sitting just outside it, going hoot, hoot, hoot. That's the other thing, we get to make lots of loud noises for this one, which is quite fun. You make continuous or repetitive sound signals, and generally I do that by groups of 5, just to make it obvious. And then that means that the next mark they're going to is somewhere else. So we have to have it done before that first boat gets there. The new mark doesn't have to be in the water, but it's really good if it's in, you know, if there's flapping about with it in the boat, that's great. If the boat's sitting there, you go, okay, cool, it must be up that general direction. I really like to have it in the water, but it's not always possible. I've had problems with boats like F-18s, which go about 1 million miles an hour, and you realise you need to change the course, and you've got about 35 seconds to do it. You're like, okay, so it's going to be over there, and we're just going to start making signals and hope for the best, and they get the picture.
So in a situation where, say you were doing windward lowers,
yes,
and one of the boats had nearly finished their first leg, and you're looking to change for the second leg, but one of the boats still had not yet rounded the old one, would you still be allowed to change it? You just put a new mark in.
Absolutely. And you just wouldn't take the old one out until
everyone else is rounded.
Exactly. And that is annoying because it means they could get confused and go to the new one. But hopefully they realise, okay, I'm behind everybody else, this is what I'm supposed to do. Most of the time it works, not always. But yeah, you can leave that old one in as long as you need to get everybody around it, and then the next time they'll go to the new one.
Which is why it's good to have the 2 different colours. 2 different
colours, absolutely. So we usually have at least a black band around the change mark, so it looks different. But we might have an entirely different colour, entirely different shape. There's lots of options you can have to make sure that you get what you are trying to do. Yes?
How do you keep a secret from a sailor?
I don't know. It could be the front page. I'll put it in the sailing instructions.
Amanda's got the answer.
So true.
Because Nadine, that answer, the answer to your question is in every single sailing instruction you'll ever read for every race. And you will be reading them in future, won't you?
Jeez. I think it's a fair question. If you don't know, ask the question. It's totally fine.
I'm here to learn.
But absolutely. And this guy, which is our Racing Rules of Sailing, that's my waterproof copy, which is a bit fancy, has all that stuff in it about how changes of course work and how shortening course works and all that. It's just a bit dry, as you can imagine. So, but yeah, generally that is how the change of course stuff works. But in practice, basically once you've seen it happen, then you go, okay, now it makes sense. So if you do see it on a rain series or something like that, then that should be quite fun.
The other thing is there is a new version of the sailing instruction that's going to be released soon.
Oh, good. Okay. We're up to number 7. Is it right?
Number 7, yep.
Ooh, exciting. So there you go. Hopefully my dodgy diagram is still there. I drew one on paint. It's really bad. It's one. I think it's a blue course or something. It looks really very inappropriate. Anyway. So we've got the last few signals on here, and then we'll move on. You don't think about flags for a minute. We've got our L flag, which you might see in 2 places. One is on shore, so on the mast up here, and that'll basically say, look at the notice board. Something has occurred that we need to tell you about. If it's on the water, it means come within hail or follow this boat. So basically, we're going to move the whole shebang, the whole course, and we need you to come with us. Generally, you'll get the idea because the rest of us will put it off, but that is how we indicate what's going on. Audio, the M flag, not my favourite, but very helpful if you need it. This is flown if you have lost a mark, if it has deflated, if it has sunk, if it has worn, which they do from time to time. And whatever is flying that M flag, which is our blue with the white cross there, that is the new mark. Treat it as a mark. It might be a boat, it might be a mark that looks like the old one, it might be a mark that doesn't look like the old one. Hopefully it's not one of the course boat crews floating in the water. And if we got desperate, we think about it.
So for example, if this one's on a rescue boat and they have laid a mark and it's played up, they become the mark?
Exactly. So what we would try to do there is if we haven't got a mark or the mark is busted and we just can't solve it in time, then Clara or Albatross say becomes the mark.
And you hope that they're members of the fleet that's chasing them?
Yeah, in front of them, certainly, yes. And we have done that before. Clara has been a missing mark because we had one drift, I think, in an AWKR years ago, and we didn't have time to set a new one. So pretty much what they did is they held station until they could anchor, which was about 2 seconds before the boats got there. But it worked. And it's a heck of a lot better than throwing the whole race out because you lost a mark. It works pretty well. So again, we're going to be making a lot of sound signals here. It's going to be full-on beep beeps to attract attention. Got a couple more left. So our Y flag, you've probably seen this one. I think, do you guys fly this one when we have a strong wind warning here?
Yes.
You need to wear your flotation device. Sometimes you can fly it in 3 places now. That's another one of the new rules. You can either fly it on shore, which basically means you have to wear the darn thing from leaving the dock to returning. There's one where you can fly it on the committee boat, which is basically you need to wear it during the race. And then sometimes you can just write it in and say you have to wear it all the time. So there's a few options there. Our 2 last ones are the orange flag, which pretty much means this is one end of the start line. And generally you'll see that on the committee boat. You may see it at the other end as well, but often we have a mark there instead. And we have a blue flag, which means that this is the end of the finishing line. That is a new one. So most of you will have seen the blue flag to indicate that the start boat is on, or the finish boat is on the station, but it actually indicates the line now. So you don't need an orange flag and a blue flag like we used to use. It's just blue.
So does that carry also a port and starboard flag?
So we would use red and green for those for, direction of
Which
course.
way do you finish on which side?
Not usually finishes, no. We've generally indicated in the sailing instructions how we want you to finish, normally.
Maybe hide something first.
Exactly. So normally it's stated in the sailing instructions which way you want people to finish. It might say, I think you guys might have this, go through, leave A to port or leave A to starboard. It probably makes sense the way you're coming from the last mark anyway. But generally with lane courses it's going to be straight through finish line, probably the start line is the same, or it might be on the other side of the boat, but it'll say. Yep.
Actually, there have been cases where we've come from, say, one of the P markers back down to C as the finish, etc., and where we say it's between the boat and C mark,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
And I have made the mistake of having this position on the wrong side of C mark because at that time of the day, sun as it was isn't good, and we should probably position on the other side. So sometimes we may choose one side or the other between the boat and the mark.
Yep.
Right.
And it should be the way that you were going to round it anyway. Again, sort of like we're talking about those. Yeah, we should have some indication of which way around to go. I mean, hopefully you'll put it on the windward side, if that makes sense, but it doesn't necessarily matter as long as you kind of can tell me. That's really the key to it, is communicating beforehand so people are not trying to guess. So we have had an incident in one race I was running where we were shortening the course, but the start line was actually a little bit below where we were shortening the course. We shortened it to blue marks that were above, and the boat was flying the short course flag, but there was not much wind, hence the shortening. And so the flag was just kind of flopping, which meant that people didn't realise that that was in fact the finish, and they were coming through to us for some reason to finish. Oh dear. And they didn't actually make it through the new finish line, which was, I think, a gate. So that was a bit ugly. And we actually lost that protest against them in Peru because reasons. But basically it became complicated and confusing. So we like to make it as obvious as we possibly can.
I think probably the problem is that sometimes when the sailing instructions are written, people don't necessarily think about where the sun will be, right, with some of these things. And
That's true.
And that's where, as an RO, sometimes, if you've got the flexibility, choose where you can actually be on with the sun behind you, or a little bit behind you, so you can actually see
where it is. Yep.
Or so you can see the sails when they're coming towards you as well. So.
Yeah, well that's always a fun job for finish ROs, is trying to figure out who the heck everybody is. If they're coming at you from strange angles or they're spinning us up with different numbers.
That's probably not a view from an RO perspective, is that you may need to actually make that decision.
Yeah, and we just like to make it as simple as we possibly can. Yeah, absolutely. All right, phew, made it through all the flags. There will be a test at the end. All right, so got a few more questions. So why do they choose that course? Well, sometimes we have to. Sometimes we don't have very many options. Sometimes we have way too many options. I don't know how many options are in the current Royal Melbourne sailing instructions, but some clubs end up with like 50 or 60 or 70 courses, which seems completely insane. And choice paralysis sets in, we have no idea what to do. But the things we're looking at really here are, basically the wind conditions are very important, obviously, the sea conditions, what direction the wind is coming from, how long we've got. So we might be running out of daylight, we might be running out of time, so we might shorten the course. What kind of boats are racing? Is this something we think about? So if you've got a lot of fast boats, longer course, happy days, slow boats, not so much. And we also think about whether the wind might change later on in the day, making life difficult for us somewhere along the way. We want to try and make things as consistent as we possibly can without complicating things, so sending people around, doing figure eights around marks or something. Is there another race? Oh boy, if I had $1 for the number of times people have asked me that question, I would have something. Sometimes I'm cheeky about this and I just go, no, I just live here now. Normally you'll find that everyone packs up this, looking like they're packing up if there's no more racing. But the way that we can signal it to say that there isn't any more racing, this is how you know, is to put up our AV over 8. So that basically means race is not started, but don't exist, are postponed, and it's time to go home. So we'll put that up without any sound signals, we'll just pop it up